The Bible says, "Let your light so shine before men that they see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." Which means it is more important to influence people by making them see, so that they know that whatever you are doing is correct. I'm glad. I want to congratulate the Minister of the Presidency for putting her foot down in the matter of selecting the Engineers Brigade to do the work here rather than private contractors. That was a good decision, and I congratulate you. This wastage, which has been going on in the government, where the corrupt people, especially for government institutions, for ministries, schools, using private contractors is really a big wastage, especially the type of private contractors we have here. These private contractors are people who don't have their own money. Therefore, when you give them a job, they go and borrow from commercial banks. And the commercial bank is charging 24% per interest. Then the private company, wants to make a profit of 20%. That's 44%. Then, because it's a private company, it must pay VAT, which is 18%. That is now 62%. Then, many of the private so-called contractors, they don't have their own transport. They must hire vehicles to carry the materials. That's another 10%, 72% now. Then I hear that they don't buy materials from the factory. They buy from middlemen. That may add another 10%. So therefore, for government departments, when we don't use direct labor like here, maybe as much as 80% of the money has nothing to do with building. You are just feeding private companies. So it's really criminal. I've told this to the army people. Now I'm glad that the Honorable Mbayo took it up for Nadi. In the presentation by Brigadier General Chomukama, he should have shown what it would have cost if we had used private contractors. Because here you can calculate how many square feet you have built up, and now you say you have spent about 7 billion for so many square feet. What would it have been if you had used the private contractors? How much would it have been? We should compare it and bring it out so that we fight this parasitism, because this is real parasitism by people in charge who just squander resources of the people with private companies with which they are linked to, instead of providing solutions to people's problems. The schools, when I studied at Ntare, it was one of the first fully government schools during the colonial period. Schools like Ntare, Teso College, Aloet, Samuel Baker were the first fully government schools. The other schools had been missionary, they were not clear. They had come through different channels. Budo, Chisubi, those started with the churches. But the government schools, the first ones were those, Ntare, Teso College, Aloet, Samuel Baker. And later on they added others like Lango College and so on. Ntare was built by the Ministry of Works. Those buildings which are still there were built by Ministry of Works, not by contractors. Certainly for Ntare it was built by the Ministry of Works. I suspect even the other schools were built by the Ministry of Works. Now when you use the Engineers Brigade, they just spend money on the materials. The money is on the materials, on the cement, on the mitaimbwa. That's where you're spending the money. And later on, they could even put a smaller profit. Instead of putting 20%, they could put maybe like 10%. Because the private person is aiming at 20% profit. So even if the engineering brigade was to say, okay, on the materials and free labor which were provided, we put 10%, it will be much better. And it will build up the capacity of the engineers brigade. You actually don't have to have one construction company in the government. You can have engineers brigade. There's already a construction unit in Special Forces Command. They have been building dormitories there, I know. That can also develop. Then the government itself should have its own construction company, the Ministry of Works. Now, these Chinese companies you see here, building roads and so on, many of them started as government and army construction companies. All these Chinese companies, which are minting money from you pharaohs. They started as government and some of them army construction companies. After doing all the work in China, when they had nothing new to build, when everything was built up, they went international. That's how they came here. Because they had done much of the work. inside the country.